Living in North Idaho, 101, Episode 1, Land, Lots, and What Nobody Tells You Before You Build. Hey there, I'm Alex with B2K Construction. If you're watching this, you're probably thinking about making the move to North Idaho. Maybe you're already here. Maybe you just bought some land. Maybe you're sitting in California or Washington or Oregon right now, scrolling through listings, looking at these gorgeous properties surrounded by pine trees, imagining what life could look like out here. I get it. I really do. But before you go any further, I need to talk to you. Because there are things about building in North Idaho that nobody tells you until it's too late. And by then, you've already spent money you didn't need to spend, or you've bought land that won't work for what you want, or you're 6 months into a project wondering why everything is so complicated. I've lived in North Idaho my entire life. I've been in the construction business for over 10 years now. I build foundations, I frame houses, I work with other builders, I build custom homes for clients who want something done right. I've built all over this area: Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, Rathdrum, Spirit Lake, Athol, Sandpoint, and everywhere in between. I've seen every kind of lot, every kind of soil, every kind of problem, and I've watched a lot of people from out of state learn expensive lessons that they could have avoided. So I'm starting this series, Living in North Idaho 101, to give you the real information, not the stuff from the real estate ads, not the generic advice you find online, the actual boots-on-the-ground truth about what it takes to build and live out here. This first episode is all about land, lots, and what you need to understand before you even think about construction. Let's get into it. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it literally. If you're coming from California or the Seattle area or Portland, you're used to a certain way of doing things. You're used to city water, city sewer, flat lots and subdivisions, HOAs that handle everything, code requirements that are strict but predictable, contractors who work within a very specific system. North Idaho is different. Out here, a lot of the land is rural, and I mean truly rural. We're talking no city water, no city sewer, no gas lines, sometimes no power lines running to the property yet. That's not a problem. It's actually part of why people move here. The independence, the privacy, the space. But you need to understand what that means for building a home. When you buy a lot out here, you're not just buying a piece of dirt to plop a house on. You're buying a piece of dirt that you need to evaluate very carefully for water, for septic, for access, for utilities, for terrain, and for what the county will and won't allow you to do. If you skip that evaluation, you could end up with a beautiful piece of property that costs you an extra $100,000 to develop, or that you can't build on at all. So let me walk you through what you need to look at. In the city, water is simple. You turn on the tap, water comes out, you pay a bill. Out here, you need to ask, where is the water coming from? There are really only three options: city or municipal water, a community water system, or a private well. City water is the easiest. If the lot is within city limits or in a developed subdivision that has city water access, you're good. You pay your connection fees, hook up to the main, and you've got water. But a lot of desirable land in North Idaho is outside city limits. That's where it gets more complicated. Community water systems exist in some areas. These are shared wells or small water districts that serve a neighborhood or development. They work fine, but you need to check on the system's capacity, the water quality, the monthly fees, and whether they'll allow new connections. Some are maxed out. Some have restrictions. Private wells are the most common situation for rural properties. You're drilling your own well on your own land. Now here's what out-of-staters don't always realize. Drilling a well is not guaranteed to work. You could drill down 100 feet and hit great water. You could drill down 300 feet and still not have enough flow. You could drill in one spot and get nothing, then drill 50 feet away and hit a good aquifer. Well drilling costs money, real money. You might pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 or more to drill a well, depending on depth and conditions. And that's before the pump, the pressure tank, the piping, the electrical. Before you buy a lot that requires a private well, you need to do your homework. Talk to the neighbors if you can. Find out how deep their wells are, what kind of flow they're getting. Are there known water issues in that area? In some parts of North Idaho, water is abundant and shallow. In other parts, it's deep, difficult, and unreliable. I've seen people buy what they thought was a dream property, only to find out the water situation was going to cost them $50,000 more than they planned. Or worse, they couldn't get adequate water at all. Don't assume, verify. Same story with sewer. If you're used to city living, you flush the toilet and never think about it again. Out here, everything that goes down your drains stays on your property. That means septic. And not every piece of land can support a septic system. Here's what determines that. Soil. Before you can build on a rural lot, you need a soil test, sometimes called a perk test or percolation test. A licensed evaluator comes out, digs test holes, and measures how fast water drains through the soil. Why does that matter? Because your septic system's drain field needs soil that can absorb and filter the wastewater. If the soil is too dense, heavy clay, hard pan, bedrock, water won't drain properly and the system won't work. If the water table is too high, you've got the same problem. In North Idaho, soil conditions vary dramatically. You could have sandy, well-draining soil in one spot and solid clay a quarter-mile away. I've seen properties where one corner of the lot passed the perk test and the other corner failed completely. The results of that soil test determine what kind of septic system you can install and where it can go. Some properties allow a conventional gravity-fed system, which is the simplest and least expensive. Other properties require an engineered system, pressurized, mounded, or alternative designs that can cost significantly more. And some properties fail completely. The soil just won't work. No septic system can be approved, which means you can't build a house with plumbing. This is why you never, and I mean never, buy raw land without knowing the septic situation first. Get that perk test done before you close. Make it a contingency in your purchase agreement. Because if the land can't support septic, you're stuck with a very expensive view. Here's another one that catches people. You find a beautiful 20-acre parcel. Trees everywhere, mountain views, total privacy. The price seems reasonable, but how do you get to it? Legal access is not always obvious. Just because there's a dirt road leading to a property doesn't mean you have the legal right to use it. That road might cross someone else's land. It might be a private easement that doesn't transfer with the property. It might not even be a real road, just a path someone's been using without permission. Before you buy, you need to confirm that the property has legal, deeded access from a public road. If access requires crossing someone else's property, there needs to be a recorded easement that runs with the land and transfers to you when you buy. If there's no legal access, you don't have a buildable lot. You have landlocked property. And landlocked property is worth a fraction of what you think it's worth. Beyond legal access, think about physical access. Can you actually build a driveway to where you want your house? Is the terrain too steep? Is there a creek or wetland in the way? How much clearing and grading will it take? I've seen lots where the access road alone cost the owners $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to build. Steep hillsides that needed excavation, culverts for drainage, retaining walls, gravel, grading, all before a single foundation was poured. That's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it needs to be in your budget from the start, not a surprise you discover later. Power, propane, and internet. Let's talk about each one. Power. Is there electrical service at the road? How far is your building site from the nearest transformer? If you're in a developed area, power might be right there. You pay your connection fee, the utility runs a line, and you're done. But if you're on a remote lot, especially acreage that's never been developed, you might be 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, or more from existing power lines. Running power to a remote site costs money, sometimes a lot of money. The power company will give you a quote based on the distance and what infrastructure they need to install. I've seen quotes of $5,000. I've also seen quotes of $50,000. There are alternatives. Solar systems with battery storage, generators, but those come with their own costs and limitations. Know the power situation before you buy. Propane. If you're outside the natural gas service area, which is most of rural North Idaho, you're heating with propane, wood, or electric. Propane is common and works well, but you need a tank on your property, regular deliveries, and the infrastructure to run your appliances. Not a big deal, but it's different from what you might be used to. Internet. This is a big one, especially if you work remotely. In some areas, you can get fiber or cable internet. In other areas, you're lucky to get basic DSL. And in really remote areas, your only options might be satellite or cellular hotspots. If reliable high-speed internet is essential for your life or work, check availability before you commit to a property. Don't assume it's available just because you're not that far from town. Coverage is inconsistent out here. Now let's talk about what the county will let you do. North Idaho is generally less regulated than where you came from. That's part of the appeal. People move here because they want fewer rules, more freedom, less government telling them what to do. And in many ways, that's true. We don't have the layers of bureaucracy you find in California or Washington. Building is more straightforward. But that doesn't mean there are no rules. Kootenai County has zoning codes. Bonner County has zoning codes. Building permits are required. Inspections happen. Before you buy land, you need to understand the zoning. Is it residential, agricultural, timber? What can you build? How big? Are there setback requirements from property lines, roads, and waterways? If you want to build a shop, can you? If you want to run a business from your property, is it allowed? If you want to put in an accessory dwelling unit for your parents, what are the rules? Some properties have covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC&Rs, from a previous subdivision or development. Those can limit what you build, what colors you use, whether you can have outbuildings, all kinds of things. Don't assume that because you own the land, you can do whatever you want. Do your research. Check with the county planning department. Read any CC&Rs before you buy. And get your permits. I know some people think they can skip permitting out here because it's rural and nobody's watching. Bad idea. Unpermitted work can come back to haunt you when you try to sell, when you try to refinance, when you try to get insurance. Do it right from the start. This is where my experience really comes into play. A lot of land in North Idaho is not flat. We've got hills, slopes, ridges, ravines. That's part of what makes it beautiful. But building on slopes costs more than building on flat ground, sometimes a lot more. When you're walking a property, thinking about where your house would go, you need to think about excavation, retaining walls, drainage, foundation design. A house on a steep lot might need a daylight basement cut into the hillside. That's significant excavation. Moving dirt isn't free. Retaining walls might be needed to hold back slopes and protect the structure. Proper drainage has to be engineered so water flows away from the house, not into it. All of this adds to the cost of construction. A lot that looks like a bargain might not be once you factor in the site work. I'm not saying don't buy sloped land. Some of the most spectacular homes are built on hillsides with incredible views. But go in with your eyes open. Budget for reality, not fantasy. Also consider orientation. Where does the sun rise and set relative to your building site? Where do the prevailing winds come from? In North Idaho, winters are real. A house that's positioned to take advantage of passive solar gain and protected from north winds will be more comfortable and more efficient. These details matter. Think about them early. Let me tie all of this together. When you're shopping for land in North Idaho, you'll see a price per acre. You'll compare it to what land costs where you came from. You'll probably think it's a great deal. And it might be. But that list price is just the beginning. The real cost of land is the price you pay, plus everything it takes to make that land ready for a house. That might include well drilling, septic system installation, power connection or solar system, driveway construction, clearing and grading, permits and fees, soil tests and surveys. I've seen people buy a lot for $80,000 and then spend another $80,000 just getting it ready to build. That's not unusual. On remote or challenging lots, the development costs can actually exceed the land price. That doesn't mean it's a bad investment. You're still way ahead of California prices. You're getting land and privacy and a lifestyle you couldn't afford there. But you need to budget for the whole picture. Don't buy land with a building budget that assumes everything else is free. Here's my practical advice. Before you put an offer on any piece of land, do these things. Walk the property. Not just the easy parts. Walk the whole thing. See the terrain. See the access. See where a house could realistically go. Verify water. If it's well water, talk to neighbors. Research the area. Understand what you're likely to encounter. Get a perk test. Before you close, make it a contingency. No septic approval, no deal. Confirm legal access. Review the title work. Make sure there's deeded access from a public road. Check utilities. Power, propane, internet. Know what's available and what it costs to connect. Understand zoning. What's allowed? What's restricted? Are there CC&Rs? Talk to a builder. Not after you buy, before. Someone like me who knows the area can walk a property with you and point out things you'd never think to ask about. I offer consultations exactly for this purpose. Before you spend a dime on land, I can help you understand what you're really looking at, the opportunities and the challenges. That one conversation could save you tens of thousands of dollars and years of frustration. North Idaho is an incredible place to live. I've been here my whole life, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. The beauty is real. The four seasons are real. The sense of community, the slower pace, the access to nature. It's everything people say it is. But building a life here requires understanding how things work out here. It's not the city, it's not the suburbs. It has its own rhythms, its own challenges, its own rewards. If you're thinking about building a home in North Idaho, I want to help you do it right. From the very first conversation about land, all the way through handing you the keys to your finished home. That's what B2K Construction does. Custom homes, quality construction, built by people who know this place inside and out. This is just the first episode in the Living in North Idaho series. In future episodes, we'll get into the building process itself, what to expect with design, permits, construction timelines, budgets, and more. Real information from real experience. If you have questions, if you want to talk about a property you're looking at, or if you're ready to start planning your build, reach out. You can find me at b2kbuilds.com or call me directly at 509-866-6148. I'm Alex with B2K Construction. Thanks for watching. Welcome to North Idaho. Let's build something great.